What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the newest episode of the Believe in Oregon podcast, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Just me today, flying solo for a little bit. Me and Jay Stu, we could not figure out our schedule for this week, so he was on with me this last weekend after the Indiana game, which was a lot of fun. But it's just me for right now. Hopefully, we will reconnect this weekend or early next week. But I had the pleasure of bringing on the legendary voice of the Ducks, Jerry Allen, one of my favorite guests. If you listen to this podcast, I'm sure you know that. You love him as well. We have a good time talking about, what we saw last week against Indiana, kind of some overall big picture things about the Ducks going forward. And then we dive into this Rutgers game as well. So really good interview with Jerry, and then I am going to hop back on afterwards to talk a little bit about this game in general and just betting lines. I think how I would bet this game with FanDuel odds. So really good time with Jerry, fun time with him, and then I will see you after that interview, and we will talk some gambling. All right, happy as always to bring on one of my favorite guests, voice of the Ducks, Jerry Allen. Jerry, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing well. I'm getting ready for a long plane ride.
Yeah, when do you guys leave? That's gonna be a long trip.
Yeah, around noon tomorrow. I think we'll
Okay.
get in there probably around 7 or 8 East Coast time. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Been, done this once, and I asked Dan Lanning that today. What does this team learn from that first long trip? And he said they learned they can do it.
That's very true. That's very true. I think there's a little bit less going into this one than there was with Penn State and just kind of figuring out that whole thing. That seemed like a bit of a nightmare. I know it was a kind of a nightmare for me to get out there. So everyone who went probably feels the same.
Yeah, it was exciting in one sense because it was the first time there for me and for pretty much our team in that setting, 100,000 plus all in white, and they did it right. And then the enormity of that game, how big it was going to be, and how big it turned out to be. Hard to get to, hard to get away from. We had a like 2.5 hour bus ride afterwards to get to the airport just to get back home. So it was a drag, but it was a successful drag, and I think that's the big point. They fought their way through it and came away with a win.
Definitely. And very nice to have the bye week after
Yeah.
that,
Oh
too. So you
yeah.
don't, it's
Yeah.
not like you had to get home and you're on short rest. So
No.
we've got a lot to talk about today. Obviously, we're going to get to the Rutgers game, but last week gave us a lot to kind of digest and discuss. To me, it seemed like a bit of a wake up call for this team. I don't think a bad wake up call. I think anyone can use that, and if they use it for positive and make sure they improve going forward, then it's good. And we know in this new day and age of college football that losing one game is not gonna hurt you too much. So, first of all, what do you think you learned about this team last week, and what were your overall impressions about that game against Indiana?
Well, first of all, Indiana's a really good football team. I think we learned that. We knew coming in they were pretty good, but we didn't realize how good. And they smacked Oregon in the mouth. And I don't want to say I don't think the Ducks are ready for that because that's just not a Dan Lanning team. They're going to be ready for it. But Indiana got to jump and then never let up. They believed all the way through, and Oregon was never really able to get any separation. And when it came down to that second half, particularly the fourth quarter, Indiana kept the pressure on, won the battle in the trenches, and that's where a football game in really good teams, that's where it's won or lost. And I think that's for Oregon what they struggle with for whatever reason. Give Indiana credit. I think they came in with a great game plan and they were ready to play, and they did. And Oregon did not rise to the occasion on that day. Indiana was the better team on that day. If they played again, would it be the same? Who's to say? But the Ducks did not show up, not the way they have in the past. Their offense wasn't as crisp, wasn't as sharp. Dante Moore didn't get protected really well, and he got hit a few times. And I think that affected his game. So you can look at what did happen, why it happened. I don't know. But I know they went to the doctor on Sunday, as they always say they do. They looked at what they did do right. They looked at what they didn't do right. And they felt pretty confident coming out on Monday what they had to fix and what didn't work. And I think they've had a really good week of practice. I think they responded the right way. And I think Coach Lanning and his staff were happy that they took the coaching and took the shots that they probably had to take from the coaches when they looked at that video and saw what they didn't do right. So that was not a good football game for Oregon. It just was. Indiana was the better football team, and they proved it, particularly in that fourth quarter.
Yes, they looked really good in that fourth quarter. The second half in general. I think
Yeah,
what
yeah,
surprised me the most was, like you said, the trenches and the physicality that Indiana brought to that game. I wasn't expecting it. I hand up did not give Indiana enough credit. I think a lot of people kind of feel the same way. Um, they really impressed me. That's like you said, that's a very good ball team. I think Oregon could very well face them again somewhere down the line.
yeah.
It wouldn't be in the Big Ten title game, I don't think, but maybe in the playoffs somewhere down the line. I talked to Tez Johnson earlier in the week and was just asking him about this game. And I asked him, I said, you know this team, you know this coaching staff after a loss. What's this week of practice like? And he just started laughing. He's like, oh my gosh, their practice on Tuesday, I'm sure, was the hardest practice they've ever had in their lives. Like I'm sure it was that way. So I'm excited to see what this team can look like moving forward, going into Rutgers. We'll talk about this game more in the future, but um, it sets up to be a matchup where I think they can kind of smooth some things out and get right in a few spots. Particularly Dante Moore. I mean, like you said, he struggled in that game. He got hit a lot. I don't know if all of the protection issues were the offensive line or just miscommunications with him and the running backs. I don't think were perfect. The tight ends kind of struggled a little bit, but um, all of this being said, it doesn't mean that he's suddenly a bad quarterback. I think we all still believe he's a very talented kid. He's going to get like better from this. You're not who you are on your worst day. You're not who you are on your best day.
Yeah.
Has your opinion of him changed at all? What's your kind of overall view of him after this game that we saw against Indiana?
Yeah, he's still the real deal. I mean, and he didn't have a good game, and he'll probably be the first to tell you that. The reasons for it, you're right in the trenches, the battle. Wasn't a clean pocket all the time. He had some probably misreads, and then that pressure probably created some happiness in those feet, and you start not going through your progressions, and you're not comfortable back there. And this is the first game I really feel like they felt the pressure from Indiana. Penn State was somewhat like that, but he handled it. So what I liked about this team is after a tough loss like that, particularly in your home field, you can come out the next week and be pointing fingers and go, "Well, I did this all right. The guy next to me didn't, and it wasn't my fault, or this was, or the call, or the coaching, or whatever." They came out on Monday ready and anxious to play, and Tuesday was a spirited. I mean, they wanted to get better.
Mhm.
There'd been years coming off a tough loss where you just see they're still dragging their feet a little bit, hanging their head a little bit, not happy with themselves, and don't know how to get out of it. I think Lanning and these coaching staff were able to get them out of that, teach them their mistakes on Sunday, and so they were anxious to come out this week. But Dante, yeah, subpar game for him, but my gosh, you can't look across pro football, let alone college football, and not see the greatness of quarterbacks have a game like that where something goes wrong, the pressure is different, you're not ready for it, you don't absorb it, and you have a bad day. And I think Dante, with his offensive line, and those tight ends you mentioned, didn't have a good day together. You can't put it just on him. It's a team thing. But he didn't respond as well as we've seen him respond, but he's been there before. I mean, don't forget where he went through at UCLA. He knows what it's like to go through those games and come out the other side. Now he knows what it's like to go through a game like that with the team around him that he knows will lift him back up. And I expect to have him right back in what we've seen him for early in the season.
I agree. Dan said it after the game. He said it again this week. We know it to be true. This team still has everything that they wanted going into the season still in front of them, still available to them. We saw what Ohio State did last year, losing twice in the regular season, and then they
Yeah.
got hot at the right time, went on a run. So, one of these losses in October is no longer going to kill you thanks to the new format. What do you expect to see from this team going forward? Again, I'll mention my conversation with Tez Johnson. He said that he kind of thinks it's like after that Washington loss in 2023 when they kind of just turned into a buzzsaw after that and just they got angry instead of getting kind of sad and upset. So I think we kind of could see that. What do you think?
Yeah, we saw what Oregon can do in the first 3 or 4 games of this season. How good they be. We saw what they could do against a really good Penn State team in a hostile environment. So that's how good they can be, and they know that. They've seen that. So there's no reason not to expect that coming off of a subpar game, which sometimes teams have, and give again Indiana credit for that. They forced that issue. Oregon now realizes that. They are aware of their shortcomings in that game, and I don't believe they'll let it happen again. So I think I think I don't. There's never a good loss, never a good loss. But when you have a loss like this in the middle of the season, it gives you a chance to look at what you maybe let up on or didn't do right or didn't focus on, and correct those mistakes. And you're going to correct it off of a loss to a really good team, not a subpar win or a loss against a bad team. So I think with Dan Lanning and his staff, they're gonna come out, and we're gonna see probably a much more efficient and aggressive Oregon team this week, I think, against Rutgers.
Yeah, this is one of those losses where I think what's going to come into focus now is the culture of this team and the culture that Dan Lanning is, kind of fostered in that environment. That's what I think gives me a lot of confidence. Is it's very easy to compare this to Penn State and see how things happened there, and they kind of fell apart after the loss to
Yeah.
Oregon. I'm not. I have zero expectations. That's what's going to happen to Oregon, but that is a possibility for any team. You lose with high expectations, you kind of unravel a little bit. I think
Well,
that Oregon's going to show the opposite of what can happen, and they're going to strengthen and come together.
yeah, I agree. Part of the reason is because when you listen to the coaches speak separately from the team, or in interviews when you get one on one or talk to them after practice, we had Bear Alexander on last night. And he said, I've been to the IMG Academy. I played at Georgia, won a natty. I played at USC. I'm at Oregon now. This is the best team as far as brotherhood, family, being behind each other, beside each other, that I've been on, and he's been everywhere to compare it to. He said he really appreciates Dan Lanning and what they have built here, in that atmosphere in the locker room and the practice room. And he said, and when we're not at practice, we're not in meetings, we're out together doing things together. So that probably got re-energized this week. I got to believe that probably Sunday and even Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday evenings, they probably were together, D line, the O line, those meeting rooms away from the building, talking about helping each other and getting back to what they need to do right. So it's kind of fun watching it. I've seen it from the inside a little bit. I'm not really tight inside, but I get to be a little closer than fans do, and a lot of the media do. And you see what is the honesty of the atmosphere of this team. They really are together.
And you see what that can help create too. I mean, Bear is a perfect example. He's been everywhere, and he's having a career year right now. A lot of people doubted him coming into this because he's got all the talent in the world, but
Yeah.
hasn't quite put it together. And it comes to Oregon, and Dan Lanning, Tosh LaPloy, Tony Teote get us their hands on him. He starts to having the best year of his career. So I think that environment really helps that. I'm curious going forward. One of the biggest, notes that a lot of fans have, and I don't exactly disagree, is about this running back room, and that there may be a sense that they should pare it down a little bit. I mean, they're going 5, 6 running backs deep. I talked to Jonathan Stewart last week about it, and he said, you know what? Maybe at this time of the year, you don't need to be doing 5 running backs. Maybe cut it to 2, cut it to 3. Let these guys get in a rhythm. What do you think about that? I mean, there's value in the depth and keeping guys fresh, but there's also valuable in getting them hot and having them a hot hand and getting them feeling good. What do you think about that?
Well, to me, there are two different schools of thought. And that is, they've been able to use 3, 4, 5 running backs efficiently, and it's worked for them so far. All right, to this point, it's worked. You have a bad game, you lose a game, and then people start questioning every little thing. And
Of course.
and maybe there's some value in just giving 2 or 3 guys and letting them get into a rhythm. But I also believe that when you've got a talented running back staff like they have in that running back room, and more guys are contributing, and they really feel like they're contributing, that strengthens that whole room. So I think it strengthens the team. So you've got 2 or 3 guys that are getting to play a lot, and you've got 3 other guys that are only practice players. Not to say that they're not all in, but it's not the same as feeling like you're contributing to the football team. So I see the value in 4 or 5 guys if they can do the job. Now, if you're putting a guy in and he's only averaging 1.5 yards a carry or 2 yards, then okay, why is he playing? But the Ducks have got 3 or 4 or 5 running backs who are averaging 4, 5, 6 yards a carry. When you look at those numbers, you see why they're playing. Situational, you may say, why is this guy running on 3rd and 1 instead of this guy? But up until this point, Oregon's been successful using that rotation. one loss and you start questioning everything. And fans need to go back and wait a minute. Okay, let's let them fix what they didn't do right. Let's see if they can correct that. Let's see how the next game turns out. And if we still have the same issues, then we start maybe nitpicking at it a little bit.
I think that's very fair. That's a good it's a very reasonable opinion that you have there, Jerry. Who would have thought? Let's
I'm
look
just
ahead.
throwing stuff against the wall and hoping it sticks, maybe.
Sometimes you say something smart and you make me think.
Yeah.
Let's look ahead to Rutgers. What are you most interested to see from this team in terms of improvement? There are a lot of things to improve on, but what's the one thing that you want to see where it's like, okay, that's something we didn't see last week against Indiana. They fixed it, obviously. Like, I've got a lot more confidence going forward.
Well, Rutgers has, pretty balanced as far as their opponents. They've given up about as many yards passing as they've passed for. They've rushed for about the same, so they haven't overpowered their opponents. What they have done is kept games close. I think they've
Mhm.
scored on their first possession in every game. They've either led or been close at halftime every game. So they're in the game. So I want to see Oregon strike first and strike often and not give Rutgers that feeling of we're in the game at halftime. Don't let them have that. So I want to see the Ducks need to win the trenches early. They need to, if Rutgers wins the toss and goes on defense, the Ducks need to go down and score. Right, get flip the field at the very least, get a score, and then if the Ducks are going to go on defense first, don't let Rutgers take that first drive down. So I think striking early and striking often against a team like this on their home field, especially against a team like Rutgers, who's been very good in the first half in all their games, is really important.
Yeah, it feels like another game where there's going to be those limited opportunities, limited drives. I like kind of like Northwestern, where they sat on the
Yeah,
ball a lot and they tried to limit your opportunities. The Ducks are going to need to kind of make the most of the opportunities when they get them. So I agree, scoring first or at least getting a quick 3 and out or a short drive from Rutgers if you're on defense first
yeah,
is very key
yeah.
to this game. Um, it should be a fun one. I it's weird to kind of go from the sense of, oh, one loss kills your season to now it's like, I don't mind a loss because it gets to show you like you're still alive and you get to see how this team can bounce back and improve. Like, I'm oddly very excited for this game and what we're going to see.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see how they respond. I mean, Penn State did not respond. They had to travel all the way across the country and hit UCLA, and they finally got it together, but not till the fourth quarter. It was too late. If they had another 5 minutes in that game, they'd probably come out with a win. And James Franklin is still the head coach at Penn State, but they didn't respond. So I'm anxious to see Oregon's response early in this game. I think it's going to be really good based on their week of practice. They know what they didn't do well. They know what Indiana did well and what they want to take away from Rutgers. So I'm curious to see the bounce back. They have to have a bounce back. But you're right. I mean, not last year, a couple of years ago, one loss is like, your back's against the wall. You're hoping somebody else loses so you have a chance. Not anymore. Two-loss team. Ohio State showed that last year. You don't have to be the Big Ten champion to win a national champion. And I think history is now showing teams that if they stumble along the way, they're going to be given an opportunity if they get their stuff together to get right back in it. I think Oregon's right there.
I think they'll be fine. Yeah, if you get into the two loss thing, then resume kind of gets into a little bit. I don't know
Yep.
how
Yeah.
good Oregon's resume is going to be just because, that Penn State loss or that Penn State win now is kind of in question because of what's
Yeah.
happened there. But one loss, they're fine. They
They're
should
fine.
be in it. But let's just not get to two and we don't have to worry about that.
I'll go along with that.
All right. Let's wrap it up there, Jerry. Thank you so much as always for coming on. I always appreciate these talks. I know you do too. Travel safe this weekend. Have fun in New Jersey. We'll talk to you again soon, huh?
I look forward to it, Zach. I enjoy being on with you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Jerry. All right. Good stuff with Jerry. Always a good time. Appreciate his insight. He's going out to New Jersey, so it'll be a long trip for him, but should be a good one. Hopefully, a fun one. Let's talk about gambling and betting this game. Again, all of our odds brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, Oregon is minus 17.5 point favorites. I think the over-under it's fluctuated a bit. I saw it up 61 early. I think it's like 59.5 right now. So it's moving around a little bit. But my sense of this game is I like Oregon. I'm not gonna lie. Shocker. I liked Oregon last week against Indiana. I think they were the better. I thought they were the better team then. All credit to Indiana. That was a really good game, really good team. But Rutgers, Oregon's the better team. They have the better coach. All due respect to Greg Schiano, better roster, more talented. I think better coordinators. I think they're the better team across the board. So I expect Oregon to go in there and win. Do they win by 18 points? I think so. I would lay the 17 and a half. I think this Oregon team is currently angry. I think they are going to play mad. I think that they know that they did not play anywhere close to their standard against Indiana. I think they are frustrated by that. I think they're a little bit embarrassed by what happened on their home field, losing their 18 game home winning streak, 23 game regular season winning streak. Not that those things matter to this team at all. I'm sure that Dan probably doesn't care that much, but it matters to fans, and I'm sure they feel like they let their fans down. So um, I think they're going to come into this game and try and prove something. I really do. If you've done any of the reading at Duckswire this past week and kind of seen what I've broken down, Rutgers defense is not very good. They've got, one of the worst passing defenses in the nation, a very average rushing defense, one of the worst, total defenses in the nation. You could score points on them. I think this is a game where Oregon can really get right. Like we talked about with Jerry, it's going to matter about their mentality coming in. We saw what happened with Penn State against UCLA. They flew across the country against a bad UCLA team and they lost because they didn't come out hot to start. That first quarter is going to be huge for the Ducks and just kind of determining what tone you set. I trust this coaching staff. I think that they've got them ready. I think that they'll do a really good job of getting the culture to kind of present itself and show what they can do. So if I'm a betting man, which I sometimes am, not as much anymore. I used to be when I was a younger man, but I'm taking the points, man. Or how do you say it? I'm giving the points, 17 and a half. Like I think they're going to win by more than that. I think my score prediction somewhere around, I think I said 42-17, which would be covering that. And that's right around that over under too. I would stay away from the over under because I don't know. It's a game that could have limited possessions and you might not be able to score that much. But I still like their ability to cover the spread and win outright and have a pretty good day doing it. I think they can show a lot. I think they need to show a lot just to kind of prove that they still are this team that can compete for a national championship and get a spot in the college football playoffs. So that should be fun. I will be back on this weekend. It's a 3:30 p.m. Pacific time kick, so I'll be on probably late that night. I'll go live around, if I were to guess, 9-ish around then. We'll see. But I'll record something. We'll see if Jay Stu will hop on with me. That'll be probably pretty late for him on the East Coast. So you can catch me then. That should be a lot of fun, though. You can check out more of my work at duckswire.usatoday.com. Follow me at Zachary C. Neel on Twitter. Again, we'll be back this week. Until then, take it easy.